Hey guys, Smelling80 here. So today we are back for another day of our Halloween series, being Stalker. I hope you've been enjoying it thus far. I'm not sure if you have, just please tell me in the comments. So, without further ado, let's get started. Meanwhile, in one of the few remaining villages, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Everywhere that Mary went, Mary went, Mary went. Everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. It followed her to school one day, school one day, school one day. It followed her to school one day, which was against the rule. It made the authorities come and say, come and say, come and say. It made the authorities come and say, you can't do that at school. They took her little lamb away, lamb away, lamb away. They took her little lamb away and made a yummy stew. Just kidding, that's terrible. They led her little flock away, flock away, flock away. They led her little flock away and gave it to someone new. Alright, so now that that's over and done with, today we have, hang on, I'm just trying to see how long the chapter is. Wait. Oh. Today we have The Boy Who Cried Zombies. Jack knew even less about sheep than he did about peas. Well, that's not quite true. He knew you should never put sheep up your nose, at least. After he finally got down from the beanstalk, he had stumbled into a village. The police were taking away a sobbing girl named Mary. "Hey, you," a police officer had asked. "You go to school?" "No," Jack had answered. He attached a question mark because he didn't know if no was the answer that got him arrested. Luckily for him, it was not. "Good, you've got a new job then." The officer pointed to a flock of sheep on a hill. "You're in charge. Whatever you do, don't take those sheep to school." So now Jack finally had a job. A chance to redeem himself. He could totally do this. It couldn't be much harder than taking care of a cow. And he did that for like 40 whole minutes before screwing everything up. But this was different. It was better. He didn't even go to school, so not taking sheep there was a piece of cake. The sheep milled about, eating and drinking, and doing other various sheepish things. Jack was excited. His stepmother would be so proud to hear he was such a successful sheep boy, sheep person, sheep watcher, sheep sitter. He really should have asked for more details. But no matter, he had a job and he was great at it. All that sitting, watching, not taking the sheep to school, it was just great. Super great, really. He didn't like looking at sheep, he realized. Their fluffy white wool reminded him too much of clouds. Horrible, bouncy, giant-filled clouds. He didn't much like talking to the sheep, either. Sheep are terrible conversationalists. He asked how they liked being sheep. "Meh," they answered. He asked if they liked eating grass. "Meh," they answered. I'm aware that sounds more like a goat, but meh is the sound effect she put in the book, so meh is what I'm gonna say. He asked if they liked him. This time they didn't even say anything. They just stared at the ground, slowly chewing their meh grass. Jerks. He stared forlornly down at the village, wishing someone would come visit him. It almost made him miss Jill and her stupid red cloak with its stupid red hood. He wondered what Jill was up to. He wondered what his stepmother was up to. He wondered what beautiful, sweet, good Snow White was up to. He missed her. Jack flopped down onto his back, groaning in agony. He was so bored and lonely. I should note that at this point he had been watching the sheep for approximately 17 minutes. If only someone would come and visit him. Hang on, I'm just going to check how long the chapter is. Not very long at all. He stood, looking down at the tiny figures in the village below. "Knock, knock," he shouted. No one answered. "Who's there?" Jack muttered to himself. "You," he said. "You who?" "Well, you who to you too." "Meh," a sheep said. Jack threw a handful of grass at the sheep. "That was a great joke. I hope you get eaten by wolves," he shouted. "Wolves!" someone down at the village cried out. "Wolves! Wolves!" Suddenly the whole village came surging out of their homes. Sorry, I got stuck between houses and homes. They came surging out of their homes, running up the hill toward him. He stood, thrilled. Finally, some visitors. They arrived out of breath, holding knives, pitchforks, and one flamethrower. That is actually not how you want visitors to show up, unless you have a very different sort of party than I normally do. "Where's the wolf?" a burly man with a burly mustache asked. "Yes, where?" a thin man with a thin mustache asked. "Wolves?" Jack said. "Who said anything about wolves?" "You did," a curvy woman with a curvy mustache shouted. She, too, was hirsute. She won all the mustache contests, and everyone was jealous. "I was just trying to tell a knock-knock joke." The curvy woman smacked him in the side of the head. "Well, knock it off. I have pies in the oven." Grumbling, she tromped down the hill, followed by the rest of the villagers and possibly one of the sheep. I wasn't paying attention. Neither was their sheep-sitter. Jack rubbed the side of his head. It hurt from where that horrible woman with the wonderful mustache had hit him. Now he was bored and his head hurt. He watched as she went back to the closest house at the bottom of the hill. Jack waited a few minutes until he was sure her pies would be almost done. Then he stood there and, cupping his hands around his mouth, shouted, "Wolves!" Again, people swarmed out of their houses and raced up the hill. The mustachioed woman was wearing open mitts and clutching a hatchet. "Where are the wolves?" she demanded. Jack looked from side to side, faking innocence. "I could have sworn I saw one over there." He pointed into the trees. She ran in, followed by several men. Jack sprinted down the hill to her house. On the table was a glorious apple pie. Jack didn't know about vegetables, but when it came to fruit and pies, he was an expert. Though the pie was so hot it scalded his tongue, he shoved handfuls of it into his mouth. Then he turned and ran back up the hill. The villagers came out of the trees. Everyone was frowning. "There was no wolf. No footprints. Are you sure that's what you saw?" the woman demanded. "Oh, Jack mumbled, nodding. His mouth was still full of pie, but his belly wasn't full yet. The villagers grumbled, walking slowly back down the hill to their houses. When the woman got to her door, Jack managed to swallow the rest of his mouthful. "Wolf!" he screamed, pointing at the trees. They all ran back, much, much slower this time, because it was a lot of running up and down hills. In fact, the woman who would go on to invent the tower stair exercise method would also have a popular "Oh no, wolf!" hill sprinting class, but she hired actual wolves to chase people up and down the hills for extra motivation. If you survived, you ended up in great shape. I don't know, that's a reference to one of the earlier chapters. I don't know if you remember it, but yeah. No sign of any oh, whoops, I skipped a paragraph, sorry. As soon as they were out of sight, Jack rolled down the hill and back to his pie. He ate the rest of it and was still licking crumbs off his fingers as he strolled back to his spot. "No sign of any wolves," the woman said. But then she stopped and leaned closer to Jack, quivering in anger. She leaned closer, and closer. His tongue darted out to lick a stray crumb. She reached out fast as lightning and grabbed his tongue. "Aha!" she shouted. "What are you doing?" Jack said, because it is very hard to talk when someone is holding onto your tongue. "Apple pie!" she shouted. "There was no wolf, only a greedy little liar." "Arrest him!" someone screamed. "Can't," the mustachioed woman said. "The police are still interrogating Mary, and if we have him arrested, there won't be anyone to watch the sheep." She was still holding onto Jack's tongue, which was getting very uncomfortable. She tugged him forward, pinching his tongue. Then she let him go. "Come on," she grumbled. Jack watched as everyone went back down the hill. They were setting up lights in the village square. It looked like some sort of party. Jack had no doubt he was no longer invited, if he ever had been. The sun had set, and he was cold. He'd eaten too much pie, and now he was thirsty, and his tongue hurt from being burned and then tugged on. "I deserve better than this," Jack whined. "Meh," said the sheep. A twig snapped in the trees behind him. Jack startled, peering deep into the darkness there. A flash of red eyes peered back at him, then disappeared. "A wolf," he whispered. Another twig snapped. Jack whipped his head to the side, where a second set of red eyes watched him. "Wolf!" he said. A chorus of growls sounded. Low growls sounded. "Wolves!" Jack shouted. "Wolves! Wolves! Wolves!" He looked down the hill, waiting for the villagers to run up with their wonderful knives and clubs and flamethrowers, but no one was coming. Then the wolves began to howl. Jack had always hated the sound of wolves howling. It sounded so lonely, so forlorn, and so menacing at the same time. But this time it sounded different. "Brains!" the wolves howled. "Meh?" a sheep asked. Jack stumbled backward, afraid to take his eyes off the trees. "Wolves!" he shouted. "Wolves! Wolves! Wolves!" Slowly, 5 wolves shambled from under the pitch-black cover of the trees. Their eyes glowed, their bodies were hunched and twisted, and they had none of the sleek grace of predators. Instead, they lurched brokenly, their mouths hanging open. "Brains," they growled. "Zombies?" Jack whimpered. But he knew it didn't matter. No one was coming to help him. He had cried wolf too many times. He certainly couldn't cry zombie and expect a different result. Now he was going to die, and the whole village would too, all because he had been bored. There are much better things to do when you're bored, by the way. You could read a book or write a story, start a glass coffin collection, go spin in circles until you throw up, clean the house. Your parents paid me to put that one in there, sorry. Basically do anything other than be the reason an entire village is... Oh, sorry, that's Coco nuzzling the camera again. Basically do anything... oops, sorry, my thumb's over the camera. Basically do anything other than be the reason an entire village is about to be eaten by zombie wolves. That's a terrible thing to do just because you're bored. The lead wolf staggered towards him. Jack clutched the nearest sheep. At least he wouldn't die alone. The sheep kicked Jack in the stomach. "You're on your own, kid," it said before running off with the other sheep. "Oh, so now you can talk?" Jack cried after it, looked into the horrible eyes of his doom. "Meh," he whimpered. And then, out of nowhere, a gleaming golden lock flew into the wolf's head. "Get up!" someone shouted, tugging on Jack's arm. Jack scrambled to his feet. A little girl with beautiful locks of hair stood between him and death. She swung another thick lock around and around on a golden chain. A zombie wolf came at them from the side, and before Jack could cry out, the girl had flung the lock at its head, knocking it down. She pulled the lock back, wrapping the chain around her wrist. "There are more coming," she said grimly. Many fairy tales are grim. A lot of them are grim, with 2 M's, too. "We have to go warn the village." Jack had no sheep, but he sure was feeling very sheepish. You might want to be the one to tell them. I don't think they'll believe me. I broke into a house and ate all the food." Goldilocks shrugged. "I don't see the problem with that, as long as it was just right." She sprinted down the hill. Jack risked one look back. He really shouldn't have, though. An army of zombie woodland creatures, along with most of the castle employees and one burly woodcutter, were coming out of the trees. A girl in a red hood lurched to the front. "Jill?" he asked. She turned toward him, her eyes glowing. "Brains," she growled. Jack fell down the hill, and Jill came tumbling after. Okay, that was a short one, just like I said. So, I'm not really sure what else to say, but, here's Coco. He's a good kitty. He's very spooky. Perfect for a Halloween video. So, with that being said, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Happy Halloween, and I will see you next time. Bye!